good evening, and thank you for being here this evening. It's every time that we hold an opportunity for us to come together as a community, we hope that we have standing room only, but tonight we'll start, we'll continue to connect with our community as such as Starbucks started, one cup at a time. We'll start one parent, one constituent, one employee, one student at a time, in order for us to continue to grow, as a collective in a community in Clay County District Schools. For those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Addison Davis. I am the superintendent of schools in Clay County for the last 16 months. I'm completely excited to be in the school district in order to improve teaching and learning. But now tonight is for us to really discuss some pressing demands not only on our local community, but from a national perspective as well, as relates to securing our campuses and creating a safe and respectful environment within Clay County District Schools. Before I get started, I want to take a minute to recognize individuals who've been instrumental in my work since I've been here in the last 16 months. And those are individuals on my board. From District 3, we have Mrs. Betsy Condon. And from District 4, from the hometown, we have Mrs. Mary Boland. Thank you for being here. We appreciate I appreciate your continued support as we continue our work in Clay County. But thank you for being here. I know that there's so many places that you can be on a Tuesday evening, being with your family, your friends, and your loved ones in order to spend time with them. But you being here signifies your importance for public education, and also signifies your care about safety within the school district. For me, the rationale that I decided to go on the road with my team is to, in law enforcement, is to ultimately go and connect with every one of our communities so that I can bring you to the round table discussion. From my side, I went to, about 2 weeks ago, me and Sheriff Daniels, he was here just a minute ago, he has to go to another event. We were able to attend Channel 4's Generation Under Fire forum, in the sense that they invited superintendents from Northeast Florida, sheriffs from Northeast Florida, mental health specialists and agencies, along with students and caregivers and parents and teachers as well. And at the beginning of that forum, Generation Under Fire, Channel 4 Kent Justice asked to all the students, and around 20 students were there, raise your hand if you feel safe. And this was at the beginning of the discussion. Not one student raised their hand as relates to feeling safe in their schools. And while these were students around Northeast Florida, none of the students were from Clay County, but it didn't matter to me because it resonated to me. I felt, in the same position as every other superintendent from surrounding counties, because they all had kids that were there. I felt, and I was in their shoes for an immediate moment. And I started to reflect, if students in Northeast Florida from other surrounding counties feel that they're not safe in their school district, then rest assured that the students in Clay County feel the same way. And I begin to reflect as a leader in trying to determine what the causation was. Why do students feel that they are unsafe? And at the end of the night, of 2 hours of conversations, of 2 hours through superintendents speaking about the work, through mental health agencies speaking about the work, through our law enforcement with our sheriffs speaking about the work, they asked the same students the question after 2 hours to raise their hand if they felt safe, and over 90% of the student body who was there that evening raised their hand. And it dawned on me is that it's not the fact that the school district isn't taking proactive steps and they're not building beautiful relationships with local law enforcement, such as the one that I have as a school district with Clay County Sheriff's Office. It's the fact that we have to do a better job communicating to our students, to our community members, to our caregivers, our business partners, faith-based partners, and our parents about what steps we are taking in order to ensure a safe and respectful environment. Hence the reason that we're going to every feeder pattern with me and my team in the Sheriff's Office to discuss proactive steps that we are taking, and at the same time talk about the vision for safety while getting the feedback from our community as how we move forward and what may be pressing concerns. As superintendent, I will tell you that as a superintendent, as a community member, as a leader, no student, no teacher, no employee should ever have to experience the horrific act that happened on February 14th in Parkland, Florida. It has changed the way that we do business, especially not only locally in Clay County, but also throughout the state and also throughout the nation. And it has refined our work and created greater attention. But I want to tell you this. This attention was created years ago with Columbine and also years ago with Sandy Hook. And I'm not saying that school districts and law enforcement and mental health didn't rally then, but I think now more than ever, since it's closer to us at home in Florida, that now the red flags go up. And as superintendent, I have to do a better job communicating what we're doing internally. I have to take proactive measures with my internal staff to make sure that we are hardening our structures and that we are continuing to communicate what's working, what's not, and what we are doing differently related to safety within our school district. So ultimately tonight, there's a couple of objectives that I want to get across. The first one, making certain that you understand the state of safety in schools, that you understand the action steps that we're taking in Clay County District Schools as a collective, how the recent legislation with impact of Senate Bill 7026 has impacted our school district financially and also with services, and what that vision of safety may look like with your voice. And then engage each of you, for those of y'all who may have questions, and answer any questions you may have, related to safety and security within our school district. Tonight at the end of your tables, you should have cards. And in those white cards, I'd ask you to write any of the questions that you may have. And if you would write those questions and then funnel them to the end of your table, Mr. Brodsky, the head of Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, will come by. He will obtain all of your questions, and at the end, we will answer your questions in a structured manner through his voice, using your questions. And at the same time, I may take questions from Facebook so that we can make certain that we engage with all of our constituents this evening. So, as we move forward, coming in 16 months ago, I created a theory of change, knowing that we had to address a systemic change in order to improve teaching and learning within the school district. And there's 4 pillars that we addressed and that we built upon. And the first pillar that we addressed was creating a positive learning-focused environment, was ensure that we had the strongest, safest learning environment in each and every one of our schools. And tonight, I put this red arrow here because this is the focal point for what we will focus on this evening. It is the foundation of everything that we do in education. We know that we must control the learning environment, we must gain access to our learners, and we must create a psychologically safe place for every one of our stakeholders, including our employees, our staff, and our students, in order for us to move forward with addressing the intellectual academic standpoint. We know that if we create that solid foundation, then we're able to transition to focus on phase 2, which is developing great educators and leaders within our school district. That is focused on retention and recruitment efforts to make sure that we have the best and the brightest teachers and leaders within our district and our schools in front of our students every single day. That's looking at the evaluation process, and that's also focusing on professional development to ensure that we maximize moments of learning in every one of our classrooms and give the teachers the resources they need in order to compete and be successful in the classroom every single day. And then once we have a great environment, we focus on building the capacity of leaders and teachers, we can then focus on providing quality instruction in every classroom every day. And that is centered around having a common vision of what quality instruction looks like and looks for, and then making certain that we have the curricula and the resources needed in order to build the capacity of our learners, in order to move the needle intellectually, to allow students to not only meet grade level expectations, but to exceed that and to be able to transition to enrichment and accelerated opportunities as well. And then finally, which is our ultimate goal, is to prepare students to become full option graduates. We want our students to not only be able to compete locally, but to be able to compete nationally. That's for college, career, the workforce, or the military. And they give them every pathway and avenue they need in order to be successful. But none of this can take place if we do not address the foundational portion of this, which is drilled directly to creating a safe learning environment. And this is why we're here this evening. As we talk about learning priorities and priorities within Clay County District Schools, know that safety is and will always be one of our greatest priorities. It is significant that we focus on this, where every student, every learner feels prepared and safe to come to school, and that we focus on helping them gain access to every pathway and every direction within our school district. At the same time, I want you to know that safety cannot be solely put on the backs of schools. We cannot do this in isolation. And if you think that we can do this in isolation, the conversation has to move to a different place. And to a point where everyone in this room, with caregivers, parents, community members, faith-based partners, students, it's a 360 see accountability as it relates to safety. This is a community expectation. And it's unfortunate that we're here tonight, we're talking about whether or not we're putting metal detectors in our schools. It's unfortunate that we're talking about whether or not we're going to arm our teachers. We should be talking about how we're going to help our students compete, not only inside of our classrooms, but to compete outside of our classrooms as well. And I can tell you, as a community, we must, we're having these conversations because we have failed not only in Florida, but as a nation, to address the root causation of violence, the root causation of behavior and mental illness. And now we have to do greater work and have a greater focus. And I can say this, I spoke last night about the 360 accountability ownership. Our teachers are working so hard every day to address mental health issues and behavior issues. But I have to tell you, it extends to the dinner table. And while I can tell you, I'm 41 years of age, and my mom, my boss is here this evening, so I'll get the feedback this evening as well. But I can tell you, at 6:30, she expected me and my brothers and sisters to be at the dinner table every single night at 6:30. Every single night. And her and my father sat at that table, and they went around the table to ask us, how was your day? How were you involved? How was your academics? What did you do? How was practice? How was your curricular activity? There was ownership and accountability for me and my 4 siblings every single night. And I can tell you this, and I own this as well as a parent, we haven't gotten back to the dinner table in all of our homes. Sometimes when we wait in that line and we wait 20 minutes to go to Chick-fil-A, and we wait to get that #2 combo, we come back at home, and that Chick-fil-A bag goes to the classroom. That Chick-fil-A bag, what's your in the classroom? Because that Chick-fil-A bag goes to their bedroom, or it goes in front of the TV in the living room. That bag needs to go at a dinner table. And each of you are accountable and should be held accountable, so as well as I should be held accountable of having that conversation with our kids. I have a 17-year-old that attends Oakleaf High School. I also have a 12-year-old that attends to the junior high school. And I am guilty as well sometimes of not getting to the dinner table because of my schedule and because of my wife's schedule and their schedule as well. But I am committed to doing a better job the same way I hope you commit, and those who are watching commit to do a better job as well, to initiate and have those conversations. We have to be actively engaged in our children's life. Who are they hanging out with? Who are they texting? What are they doing on social media? What are the conversations having? What are they doing when we're not around? And I get it. Addison Davis, when I was a kid, my mom knew I was a different kid when I was at home than I was at school. I get it, because I'm around peers. I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to fit in. But at the end of the day, I need each of you and every one of our parents not to be a child's best friend, but for you to be the best parent you can be in order to create structures, rules, expectations, and accountability in every one of your children's lives. Because our teachers every day are fighting that battle every single day to help them be greatly successful. They come ready and armed and prepared and inspired to educate every one of our kids. And lastly, we have to work every single day to make sure that we have, and it is essential that we have a workplace and every school is a safe and respectful environment. This is where students can learn, teachers can teach, and every one of our employees can support the robust learning conditions to help our children grow socially, emotionally, and intellectually in our school district. This is data that I wanted you to see from a national perspective. What has happened since February the 14th throughout our nation as it relates to threats. We know that Parkland has brought a heightened awareness to safety within our school district, safety within our communities, but it's also brought a number of copycat threats that has stimulated and grown legs throughout this nation. Over 1,000 threats have occurred since February the 14th, and this is unfortunate, averaging 74 per week. And this has impacted over 1,300 schools within the nation. And we see this, as we identify the threats, we see that 42% of these threats have been engaged through social media. And 20% of these threats have been made verbally. And then around 12% have been identified written in restrooms or written on desks within our schools. And I bring this to light because I need your help with this. While social media has revolutionized the way that we view ourselves, the way that we interact with others, and the way we do business, and brought positive implications, it has also brought negative implications as well. We know that students and people and adults have false relationships with others that they admire. They also have the ability to create and pose greater threats to individuals, because when they send threats now, they don't have to look at that individual face to face and feel their immediate reaction. So much easier to send it through a text message, to put it on social media, just to put it on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever else our kids have that are just linked to social media. Back in the day I had a pager. So, you couldn't really send that kind of stuff through a pager. But nowadays, social media has evolved. But now I bring this to your attention because you need to be in your child's cookie jar. Every night, my wife, and she's a team player, she goes to my 17-year-old's and my 12-year-old's media. Every night. My kids don't have Facebook. They're not going to have it. There's no need. I want my kid to be able to walk up and talk to someone, introduce themselves, and have an intellectual conversation versus behind information through social media outlets. Now they do have the Snapchats and the Insta. They don't have Instagram either. But my wife is actively involved in coaching them every single day of what to post, what not to post, in order for them to be able to understand what you share and what you say. I challenge you to do the same thing. And while you may say that you don't have the time to be in that, there's always 5 minutes to be actively engaged in that process. Because when we don't do it, we get 42% of our students making idle threats on social media or creating bullying and harassment environment. And we have to break that cycle of undesired behaviors in our homes and then in the school district as well. As it relates to safety within Clay County, within our schools, this is a snapshot of what's happened since February the 14th. We have had 5 threats within this county, 2 of which were in this area. One at Oakleaf High School, and along with one at actually 2 here at Oakleaf. One here, one at the junior high school, along with 2 at Keystone and 1 at Fleming Island High School. We had 4 students that were addressed in those scenarios, and 1 adult. We have an adult that goes to Fleming Island and decides they're going to post a threat on the front of the building. And luckily, the next day we were on spring break. But if we didn't have the video surveillance, we would have never been able to get his picture. But all this to say is that, of these 5 threats, we've taken proactive steps. Because we've had great relationship with our administration who dove deep into this information to begin to investigate it. They've had great partnership with the Clay County Sheriff's Office who took immediate action. And then less than, I believe, 24 hours in some scenarios that we have made 5 arrests. And I don't sit here and brag to you that we arrest, because my job is to break the school to prison pipeline. But at the end of the day, when students make these types of threats, we take them serious, and it's a felony. And we stand together and united. And my hat's off to the Clay County Sheriff's Office and the administrators of these buildings who have investigated these situations, who identified these individuals, and who took swift actions to address it. But this goes to show you that we had 4 schools impacted, and of this, we had 50% of those threats were written, and 40% of those were identified on social media. But I will tell you this: while these threats may happen in copycats, Clay County School District stands ready and prepared, and we will not tolerate this type of behavior, as we will have zero tolerance. And our partnership with law enforcement and the Clay County Sheriff's Office is greater than ever, and they stand ready and prepared to address this side by side with us. But it goes more. We can't just arrest or send kids out of our schools because of these types of behaviors. We've got to get help. We've got to get behavior and mental health assistance in order to address their issues so they don't duplicate these types of efforts. As it relates to local legislation, Senate Bill 7026 was recently signed by the governor, and this gave $400 million to education as it relates to safety and security within our school district. I will tell you that we are truly fortunate that, it's an unfortunate situation. We're fortunate that the legislators are in session, because if an incident such as Parkland did not happen during the time that they were in session, I don't believe that we would receive this money. Because as you know, in education, we're always trying to find money in order to increase salaries of our educators, to identify the resources they need. But in this scenario, they found $400 million in order for us to help a number of issues within the school district. I would tell you this, I am blessed that we received this type of funding, because if you look at the base student allocation that they approved with the recent budget for 18-19, they only gave us 47 cents more per student. That means we got $17,000 more for next year to do greater work. And I don't know that I can tell you $17,000 isn't a lot of money when it comes to talking about servicing over 37,000 students within our school district. But nonetheless, I'm appreciative of this money, because it goes and allows us to provide opportunity for us to determine whether or not we want to engage in the Guardian program. This is a program to determine whether or not we want school-based personnel to be engaged or volunteers that go through an extensive training through the Sheriff's Office and are certified to be able to carry weapons on campuses. This also goes to funding resource officers in every one of our schools, which I'll speak to in a minute. And it declares that we must have one or an individual that is in the Guardian program to be a part of that. It also creates an Office of School Safety and Department of Education, who would drive the work to make certain that we are abreast of new initiatives for mental health and safety within every school district of Florida. It also looks at funding mental health to better assist us with behavior and mental health illnesses within our school district. And then finally, it allows us to look at school hardening, to look at our structures internally, whether or not we have metal doors, bulletproof glass, and single points of entry and fencing within our school district. All this to say is that this is approved in order to improve the safety and security of our schools. The issue is, this is underfunded as we move forward to 18-19. Why I am greatly appreciative of the money they have extended and sent to Clay County. We are underfunded. We did not receive the funding to put resource officers in every one of our schools. And we did not receive sufficient money to create better systems and structures for securing the hardened structures within every one of our schools to do it to make an immediate impact. So this is why I'm here tonight, to talk to you about proactive strategies. I'm here to talk to conversations I'm having with law enforcement and the Sheriff's Office to figure out how we can proactively address this as a community. And then finally, I will have discussions with the board to talk about what steps we can do to move forward. Clay County, when we talk about the data, has received $2.5 million due to the Senate Bill 7026. In that safe schools, last year, you see the two-year comparison side by side. We received $500,000 last year, roughly, to support safe and civil schools in our school district. Of this $500,000 in this first cell, that goes to the majority of it, the bulk of it goes to the resource officers in our high schools. And I can tell you, the Sheriff's Office here tonight can speak to it, it costs well over $580,000 to employ resource officers in our high schools. The cost is around $1.2 million to do this. And we're talking about, you see it, you just can't talk about people. You can't talk about, you can't just isolate salary and benefits. You have to talk about equipment, vehicle, weapons, training, professional development, certifications, communications. There's so much that goes into the employment of a resource officer. In addition, the Clay County Sheriff's Office, for every 5 officers, there's 1 sergeant. And then there's a lieutenant and a chief. And this all goes together to ensure that we have the proper supports in order to implement security. Now, as you can see, we received $1.8 million, which they increased it to $1.3 million. I can tell you right now the need for us to service all 42 of our schools, plus 2 charter schools that are under our umbrella, plus add 4 substitutes, because the men and the young women that are in the green may need a day off, they may have, they may be ill. The expected outcome is for us to generate somewhere around $3 million. I can tell you as superintendent of schools, I do not have $3 million. If I had $3 million, you would never hear the employees talk about insurance in the school district, which is the board would know, which is a great concern. So we have got to work with proactive strategies to make certain that we can figure out what we're going to do. I can tell you openly and honestly, we should not be talking and having a conversation about arming teachers. And as superintendent, I will not support it. We should be talking about arming teachers with more money, inspiring them to teach, and giving them the resources to improve teaching and learning. That is our role. So you can clap, Ms. Bola. And as I talked to Chief Stivers as well, it's not about putting more guns in the schools. That creates greater problems. It's about having the individuals that of law enforcement that have the training, the understanding, the ability, the skill set to address an unfortunate, undesired situation in our schools. Our teachers have too much on them. They're trying to differentiate instruction, to understand the shifts of the standards, to control all, the 22 to 25 kids in their classroom. They're trying to use data analytics. They're trying to create small group instruction. They're contacting their parents. They're sitting on advisory committees. They have too much to put this on them, and it is unfair to do so. In the same way with our school-based administrators. So we will work rigorously with the Sheriff's Office. We will work rigorously with the County Commission and my board in order to find and identify proactive solutions to ensure that we are aligned with the Senate Bill 7026. In addition, I would tell you that we did an initial analysis by our staff. It's going to take $12 million to have immediate harden the structures of our schools. Our schools have been deferred. The maintenance of our schools have been deferred for so many years. And under my leadership in the last 16 months, we've done, through the work of Dr. Kemp and Mr. Hans, we've worked rigorously to try to harden structures and try to better structures. But I can tell you, everyone's not sitting in the communities such as Oakleaf, where these schools are, 8 to 10 years old? 8 years old? We have schools that the average age of our schools in Clay County are 47 years of age. And we have some schools that are, we're built in the 20s. So we have aesthetically a lot of work to do. And for us to create fencing, hardened structures, metal doors, single points of entry, increased surveillance, individuals to monitor those surveillance, not to be reactive from the surveillance, it's going to take $12 million. Now I will tell you openly, I'm going to work with our staff in order to pause some of the initiatives and projects we have in order to create a better system of instruction in our school district. But I'm here to be openly and honest with you and transparent, and for you to be a thought partner of what we can do in order to move the needle and create safe schools in our district. I am excited about the mental health. We got around over $900,000 to address mental and behavioral health in our school district. This will allow us to do so many different things to bring greater supports to our school district, to not only help develop the whole child, but to help develop the entire family and gain access to the community. And then we have SEDNet, which is a beautiful resource across the state to help families deploy certain resources, whether it be healthcare, medical, counseling, to help our families. And then one thing we will launch tomorrow through a press conference with Senator Bradley is that we have community partnership schools. And currently right now it's at Wilkinson Junior High School. And we use that $100,000 to create nonprofit organization partnerships that allow us to bring nonprofits in to not only focus on supports for our students, but to focus on supports for our families. Whether they need help with health care, whether they need mental health assistance, whether they need financial assistance, whether they need help with extended educational opportunities. We have some parents that want to seek their GED or high school diploma or go on beyond to college, and we're going to have individuals on staff to help them as well. And this is the partnerships that we not only want in Wilkinson Junior High School, but we want to grow that. And thankful to our local legislator, we've got an additional $300,000 to make that happen, to grow that initiative. I will say that the initiative will probably be placed at the North County in the Orange Park area. One probably needs to be placed in the Keystone area, and then we'll identify through analytics where the final fourth place will be identified as we create the structure. Our hope is to duplicate this mentality across the entire school district, including the Oakleaf area. But overall, looking at this, $15 million that we need in order to secure every one of our campuses immediately. But I will tell you this, I got a couple of slides, in my next 3 slides we'll talk about overall referral data, it will talk about suspension data, and it will talk about arrest data. The first 2 slides will talk about solely about the Oakleaf feeder pattern. In this data, the reason I shared this data with you is because this first document, and the next 2 documents really signify that we have a safe environment within our schools. This data shows identifies the average number of referrals per student on campus in the Oakleaf feeder pattern. And it gives you every one of our schools. In addition, with Wilkinson Junior High, because we have some kids that come from Wilkinson. But I will give you, this is the district ratio now per student, so this is less than 0.4 referrals per student. This is where we were in 15, this is where we were in 16. The first bar shows you a 3-year progression. And what this ultimately shows you, that under my leadership of 16 months, that we are declining in the number of referrals, which tells me this has contributed to greater student engagement, more focus for our teachers to maximize bell-to-bell teaching, and we have greater resources for kids. Teachers are helping students have greater ownership internally. In additionally, we have greater focus with accountability. Now, we will see that of all the schools, there is one increase that we see referrals, and this is Wilkinson, and we are addressing it. This is one of the main reasons we decided to place the community partnership schools within this district. Okay. In addition to this is the next one is suspension rates. Once again, we see that we are trending down as relates to suspension rates and in-school suspension, which signifies that we continue to have a safe environment. The solid progressions, the bars are related to in-school suspension, and forgive me, this is the best I think we can come up with a different differentiation to show out-of-school suspension with the crazy bars with the zagged lines. I may not use those for next time, but this shows the progression of every one of our schools, and we do see a decline in every one of our schools as relates to out-of-school suspension and also in-school suspension. I will tell you, our job is not to get into the business of suspending kids. We will have hard, severe consequences for kids who exhibit undesired behaviors. We will address them as outlined by school board policy and the Code of Student Conduct. We will address them. But we need to be able to keep our students in schools in order to refine the efforts. If Addison Davis comes and I kick a chair and I get suspended, I come back after 2 days and I kick the chair again and I get suspended, have we helped Addison Davis? The answer to that is no. What we have to do somewhere in there is figure out whether it's through restorative justice, restorative practice, what is the causation for Addison Davis's action? Can Addison Davis self-reflect on his actions? And how can we get Addison Davis to realize that his actions are unacceptable, and he's remorseful, and how do we move forward with Addison Davis making better decisions? And those are coaching conversations through my peers as a student, and through my administration, and through my teachers. So I want you to know that suspension can't be a revolving door. We just suspend. We've got to actually infuse prevention and intervention in order to treat our students every single day within our school district. And lastly, this is the number of arrests within our community. This is every school within Clay County, every feeder pattern you would see. Overall, we're down the number of arrests from 68 to 63. And please note, this is not isolated to schools. This is in the community as well. This is data that we received from the Sheriff's Office. It just tells us students that have been reported to be identified and arrested within our feeder patterns. And as you can see, that some of these numbers are alarming. But at the end of the day, as we continue to have greater resources for our schools, we can continue to have beautiful relationships with our law enforcement, and we continue to create accountability measures at the dinner table within our schools, these numbers will be able to decrease, and we will stop the school to prison pipeline in order to help better our students and coach our students every day. But I will tell you, as superintendent, we will stand strong, and the Clay County Sheriff's Office will enforce the law at every part and every portion where they need to do so within our communities. So, what is Clay County District Schools doing? This is where, when we talked about, I opened up, and the students at the Generation Under Fire, when they started off, they didn't feel safe. When they left, they felt safe because they just didn't know. And the same thing with our parents. So I want to share to you all the things that we're doing from a school district. One of those students who said they didn't understand that we were addressing operating procedures and addressing emergency and crisis management plans. This is always an opportunity for us to continuously refine our work in order to make sure we have the greatest policies and procedures in place. Every one of our schools has flip charts for accessibility about emergency protocols in place so they can know what to do, when to do, and it relates to safety within our school district. Every individual that darkens the doorway within our schools, every visitor, business partner, community member, they have to slide their identification through our Raptor Visitor Management Program and system that identifies whether or not individuals can be around our schools, around our students in our schools. Additionally, we've employed since Parkland on February 14th, Every gate will be locked, every external door will be locked, and every classroom will be locked internally, and that's including portables. I sent that message out within 2 or 3 hours to this entire organization of Parkland to communicate it to every one of our employees and every one of our leaders in our school district. In addition, we are focusing to have central points of entry for any one of our individuals that visit our campus, to come to the main office as well, to make sure that we are vetting that process, that there's not gaining access. We know that we have large availability to access in our high schools, so we're doing everything we can to harden those structures to make sure that we can control those single points of entry. In addition, we are leveraging behavior and mental health specialists. We have school counselors, school psychologists, behavior specialists. We have social workers and outside agencies that stand ready to address students who exhibit undesired behaviors. In addition to that, we have directed staff and faculty and administration to review protocols for emergency and crisis management since February the 14th, along with new procedures related to so students can be actively engaged. And then one of the biggest things is that we focused on, and I'm encouraged by, is our students do a great job being able to articulate what's transpiring within our school district and within our community. And we talk about our students, we want them to, when they see something, hear something, to say something. And they continue to keep us in the loop. They continue to let us know what's going on so that we can take proactive steps to address any of the issues and potential threats or bullying and harassment that may take place. And then also we've identified a district safety specialist that will lead the work internally to ensure that we have a safe and respectful environment. As it relates to what we are in the process of doing in Clay County, I want to share a number of items that we are looking at, that we are in the progress of doing. We are continuing to increase security, monitoring, surveillance within every one of our schools. In the sense that we had the issue at Fleming Island, we just put that surveilling cameras within 2 weeks prior to that. Without that, we'd not have been able to identify that individual. We have continued progress throughout the entire district to make sure that is happening. In addition, we have refined the number of fire lockdown and weather drills that are being conducted within our schools, and we have identified those numbers within our school district for our administrative staff. So we are taking proactive measures just in case we are exposed to a situation such as occurred in Parkland. And then we are increasing visibility and accessibility of law enforcement. As you can see, you'll see that law enforcement continues to be ready and available on our campuses. They continue to circulate when they're doing their beats off campus, the deputies. But anytime that I've asked the sheriff's office to come and be a part of our conversation, to investigate, to conduct threat assessments, to be visible due to a threat, or to be visible to gain access to our kids and build relationships, they're always there. And they are removing their details from certain task force that they are implementing in order to make this happen. And I can't thank these individuals enough. This gentleman, I speak to him at 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes to talk about what's going on in Clay County. And he's always readily available and ready to stand beside us in our body of work. And additionally, what we have future actions for what we're doing. We are looking at having greater sense of buzz-in system to our main doors, so that when individuals come, they are buzzed in and that they are credentialed to be able to have access, beyond the lobby of our school district. We are looking at adding additional fencing everywhere. We are trying to figure out how we create greater structures to protect our portables. What can we do to look at bringing additional portable metal detectors within our schools, and also looking at switches for classroom teachers where they can have an immediate device that they push to be able to connect not only with our administration, but also connect with our local law enforcement and fire rescue, so they can be signaled immediately, so that we just don't have this great separation of time of being able to inform the administration, who then has to turnkey, verify, and get to our law enforcement, so we can have better structures in place to have immediate responses for our teachers in our classroom. In addition, we are establishing a bullying and crisis hotline in the near future for our stakeholders and our students, to address bullying, to address crisis that students or families may be experienced to. Along with us, we're going to be working, even though we had our initial threat assessment of all of our buildings, we're going to be working with law enforcement to figure out what we can do to harden our structures, to get their lens, because they are the practitioners in relation to securing all of our buildings, so that we can have a collective stance for what we need to do within every one of our environments And then we will be establishing a behavior and mental health plan in 1819, along with having a district threat assessment plan and a crisis team in order to deploy to provide services to every one of our schools. As it relates to Clay County's preparation, I will tell you we are prepared to stand prepared. We have conducted over 350 drills this calendar school year. In that, those are included lockdown, severe weather, along with fire drills. We have begun to update training for our administrative staff that happened weeks ago to let them know the new protocols and procedures that we have placed. We've asked them to turnkey that with staff and along with students so they know what exactly is transpiring. So what will we do for 18-19? We will increase intense professional development on training for our new procedures for administrative staff. In addition, we will ask them within the pre-planning to turnkey that with our teachers and our faculty and staff so they truly understand the steps that we are taking related to safety and security within our schools. And then within the first 2 weeks, have training for our students so they know how to interact with these types of drills if we're ever exposed to these types of behavior. And then we will have all drills will be conducted in the first 30 days. And then I will create a team of law enforcement and district staff that we will go and do random unannounced drills at schools. And that's going to be intruder drills, that's going to be lockdown drills that we will circulate, and it's not to get to a point where it's an I gotcha standpoint, it's to ensure that our schools, our administrators and our teachers and students are taking the right steps as outlined in our emergency and crisis management plans. But for us as leader in law enforcement to give immediate feedback to our schools and to show them and give them information on how to better their practices. We have to have a growth mindset in the part where we believe that we can continuously evolve as a school district, and this is a way that we can continue to conduct those types of threat assessments and intruder assessments as a random drills. We require 7 fire drills, 4 lockdown, 2 severe weather drills per year. That number may increase. But we want to ensure that our students are prepared. When we say 4 lockdown drills, we are doubling what the governor has expected us to do. He wants us to do it each semester, and we're going to double that for next year, moving into 18-19 school year. As it relates to mental health, same mentality of what we're doing and what we have completed. Every school has a counselor, and many of these counselors are ready and prepared to service our kids, and they are trained in mental health. Additionally, we have developed a district crisis intervention team where if we're faced with a crisis at any point in time, we are deploying that team to go provide immediate supports to not only students but also to families and to teachers as well. We have employed school psychologists, social workers, and district level specialists to help with the mental health movement. In addition, we have school-based nurses at every one of our schools to help with our kids. We have a employee assistance program that's available to all of our employees to help with mental health. And then we have community partnerships with Play Behavior Health along with Right Path and Children's Home and Society in order to grow our legs to help students within our school district. So what are our plans for 18-19? Our plans are to put motivational coaches in every one of our junior high schools. Right now, we launched this initiative 3 months ago. We have motivational coaches that are working with kids who are exhibiting undesired behaviors related to academics, behaviors, and attendance. We are triangulating those data in order to work with a cohort of kids to help them become organized, or help them to assist them to become well and to get on track in their cohort for graduation. We seek to grow that into our high schools as well, because we know that kids mentally drop out in junior high school, but they physically drop out in high school, and we're trying to break that cycle of behaviors. In addition, we are launching tomorrow a community partnership schools. As I talked about the nonprofit organization, we bring faith-based partners and nonprofits in order to help us with mental health, medical assistance, postgraduate assistance, along with addressing violence and hunger. And then we're incorporating social-emotional learning curriculum, whether for 18-19 that may be standalone or may be embedded into our curriculum, to pretty much help with character education within our schools, especially at the elementary level. And then we're working to identify early warning indicators to our administrative staff and teachers, where they can have a click of a button, identify individuals who are not doing well academically, attendance, and behavior-wise, so they can begin to identify those students and work to put in place interventions to better help our learners and to move forward with them to be successful. And we'll be launching youth mental health first aid training for all of our admin this summer, along with teachers. And this is introducing our teachers to common mental health challenges in our youth, So, this helps identify whether or not our students are identifying, are dealing with anxiety, depression, whether they're involved in substance abuse or behavior disorders. And that's going to give our teachers better indicators and our administrators as well to better help our students. And then we'll be increasing mental health experts in our school district, along with creating full-service schools concept, which we don't have, which we're looking to do. But I tell you all this is because when I talk about underfunded mandates, these are all of the things that we need funding to do. As a school district, we talk about bringing $15 million, and as a community, we have to find additional revenue sources. We internally do not get the money from the state, and I can tell you the county doesn't have a significant amount of money, so we have kind of looked differently about how we generate money within our community. And our community needs to stand by education because it is the foundation of everything that we do, along with help side by side to harden our structures. We need to be able to continue to put light in common areas of our campuses and throughout our campuses. We need to be able to look at immediate crisis software that teachers have on their phone or have on their computer that have ready accessibility about what to do, what the steps, what's going on, so it's an immediate alert system throughout our school district. We need to be able to have unarmed security guards in our schools for more accessibility and more eyes on campus to assist, to figure out who's coming on and off campus, what's going on. We need to be able to have resource officers at every one of our schools. And we need to be able to have a public announcement system that doesn't just go to classroom, but goes to the exterior campus as well, so everyone on campus knows what's going on. We have to create those structures, and that costs money. And then we have to have greater surveillances within our school district that is linked to law enforcement. And right now we have surveillances on our schools, but right now it's not linked to law enforcement. We want them to have 24 access. They don't want 24 access, but be able to have access to figure out what's going on so they can be ready and stand ready, prepared to help us and assist us. And then we need to be able to continue to have maybe potentially different locking mechanisms for external doors, gates in our lobby areas, and have additional strong single points of entry within our school district. So my job as superintendent is to have 4 areas of focus. My job is to prepare, prevent, respond, and recover. And as superintendent, we have prepared emergency management and crisis management plans, and that has been articulated to all of our stakeholders. My job is to prevent, to make sure that I engage the community, to establish behavior and mental health supports, to focus on school climate at every one of our schools, and also to harden structures. We are working on that process now. My job is also to respond. I'm to respond and engage the community in our forward thinking and about what we're doing. The same reason I had the press conference here at Oakleaf, it was very important for me to get out in front and for me to stand with my board and stand with educators and my administrative staff and law enforcement to say it's unacceptable. And for me to show you that we stand united and we will take proactive steps to move forward. And for me to be transparent and guide you in a way that you feel safe every single day, whether you like the decisions that I make or my staff makes or not. I want you to be able to say Addison Davis is always in front of it and articulating everything that's transpired in the school district. And finally, recover. When we have a situation, we want to be able to recover swiftly, fastly, and accurately. We want to be able to review, update, and rebuild any systems and structures in order to make sure that they are effective and that we are continuing to have a continuous improvement model as we move forward. Well, it's enough about me. This is going to be your time. Tonight I have made cards readily available for you to provide to Mr. Brasi. He will come by and accept those cards. He will ask those questions. He will try to put those in big buckets. So if we have a question that's similar to yours, we will not duplicate that question. And we will take any questions that we have related to Facebook as well. We also have a panel here this evening that stands beside me in order, ready to answer any questions. As superintendent, I would love to say I can do this work in isolation, but I cannot. And I have an awesome team, and my team includes you as well, to be able to respond to address any issues that we may have. So I'd like for each of you to introduce yourself to everyone so they know who you are and what role you play within our school district.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica Gilbert and I'm the Guidance Curriculum Specialist, and I work with all the school counselors in our community, and I look forward to helping you as much as I can.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert.
I'm Dr. Mike Kemp. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Operations for Clay County. We have a great team that works every day to try to make sure that our schools are safe and secure. 2 of them are sitting out here. I want to make sure I mention them. That's Todd Swetland. He's the Director of Code Enforcement. He's one of the individuals that when we have issues facility-wise, I go to him and he has two types of codes. He has a go code, which means yes, we can do that, and a no code, and no, you can't do that. So he operates that way. Also, we have Mr. James Fossa. Mr. Fossa is the Director for Planning and Intergovernmental Relations, along with plays a critical role in helping us plan for facilities. So with that, also I have our Director of Maintenance with us.
Director of Maintenance, Phil Hans. I'm here to maintain the facility and keep it up and as best we can. Funding that we have.
I'm Ken Stivers. I'm here with Chief Steve Barrera, we're with the Sheriff's Office, obviously, over the school resource officers, among some other things in the Sheriff's Office. So any questions we hopefully can address.
Okay, so we'll start with the first question, Mr. Brosky.
Very first question.
Have a microphone problem tonight?
I think so.
There you go.
It's on there. It goes back to the Guardian program.
Yeah.
You know, one person would like to know, what if an individual is willing to carry, willing to be trained, willing to do all of those? What's your stance on the Guardian program?
So as I said earlier, you know, for me, I'm not attracted to arming educators at all within our schools. The solution is not to put more guns in our schools from educators, or to be openly and honestly for potential community members. You know, for me, I want to, why it's a last scenario for our school district. I want a resource officer in every one of our schools. And as I said, I'm going to work closely with our board, closely with the sheriff's office, and potentially the county commission's office to try to find funding and push the state again. The Guardian program, while it seems like it's a common sense theory that saves us money, that we could have volunteers or our veterans or former law enforcement to come in, not to disrespect their willingness and care for being a part of it. But I can tell you right now, I trust the young men and women in the green. They have done so much great work for me in the last 16 months, and I've been in this community for 15 years. And I can tell you, when my alarm goes off, they're there within 2 minutes. A couple times I got fined, just kidding. But the response time is awesome, and their trained stand ready to go. So it will be a last resort for me related to the Guardian program. As I said, we should be, we shouldn't be putting this on the backs of educators. It should be on the backs of law enforcement officers. Chief, you want to say anything to that?
I don't have any real strong feelings about guardians. I do have strong feelings about police officers. You're going to get veteran officers in these schools. You're not getting newly hired guys. You're getting 6, 10-year officers who carry with them, in addition to the training, a world of experience. So you know that when something happens at that school, those officers are going directly to that threat. If you have an educator who's armed, they're going to have to make a decision. Are they going to leave their students in that classroom and then go engage in the threat? Or are they going to stay there and guard their students? So those are all questions in addition to when we enter, it's going to be hard for us to know who the guardians are and who the bad guys are. So there's a whole myriad of issues that goes along with that. So obviously, it's one solution of a few. And those are things that the board and the superintendent are going to have to decide what they want to do. We're going to support whatever their decisions are in the end.
Thank you, sir. You got to think about it. Listen, if you put a weapon in someone's hand, and we have a scenario, and they're in the hallway with a weapon, and a police officer walks in, and that individual has a weapon, and what did I just do to that individual? Regardless if we know who they are or what's going on, it could be a bad situation, or and I don't want to put anyone in that situation other than someone who's in law enforcement.
Different topic, fire drills. Please address the new fire drill procedures at our schools. Why are students not evacuating right away?
So at the end of the day, I want to protect the safety of the emergency management policies and procedures that we have in place. I will speak to, meaning that I can't go into detail what procedures we take place internally to protect our policies. I will tell you that we work closely with the Fire and Rescue Department in order to refine our immediate procedures. If you look at what happened in Parkland, the way that students exit the classroom was because the individual, the suspect, pulled the firearm. I will tell you what we will do moving forward in Clay County is that we will verify that it's an actual threat. It's an actual fire. And that means that when that fire alarm is pulled, we will take immediate cautions and proactive steps to verify whether or not there is a portion or a will or a need in order to exit our school building. So please know that we will never put children at risk, but we will do our best to work extremely quickly in order to identify and verify, and then follow the appropriate procedures outlined by emergency management and fire.
Yes, sir. If I could just add, when you take a look at the data on incidents in schools with fires, I believe it was 1958 was the last time there was a student casualty in a fire. That was in Chicago. And when you take a look at the national trends of how the fire alarms are activated to pull what's already a soft target and make it a softer target by pulling the fire alarm and activating. It was time for us to review the protocols that we have in place. We worked with the fire department, the fire marshal, as well as the sheriff's office to make sure that we validate any threats before putting our children in harm.
Right.
The next question deals with communication. Our telephones in the classroom operate via the internet. If the internet, when the power is out, how do teachers reach administration?
Yeah, so I'm going to, Mr. Buckley is here. He is my director of IT. Do you want to speak in reference to our new phone system?
Yes, sir. So, very valid question, particularly with IP-based phones. We are complying with the federal E-rate commission for, so about four and a half years ago, the federal government through E-rate, which is the program through most of our technology is funded, sent out a compliance letter telling us to get off the POTS lines. The POTS line is literally stands for a plain old telephone system. And when we did, we went to VoIP. So the argument is a valid one in how we're doing it. So what we've done through the E-rate system, this year we have added battery backup systems we're putting in every classroom, and that's how we will power our phones, power our switches. We put in redundant internet services. We have internet services that power the computers. We have internet service that powers specifically the phones, not through the same vendors. So it would take a catastrophic outage. I'm not telling you that it cannot occur. It can. We know this. But we have taken the steps that we have dual redundancy plus dual power for this. The dual power is not in yet. It's going in this summer as we've been approved for our battery backup systems.
Thank you, sir. Good question.
Next question has to do with funding. We established a GoFundMe page for safety in Clay County. How do you plan on getting more funding?
It could be a strategy. So, we're open to anything that we can do. I can tell you, we've got to think differently. And I will say a couple of things, and I openly would tell you this, that I haven't formally submitted plans to the school board. So, but I will tell you, we've got to do something different. Whether we go for a half-cent sales tax in our community to harden our structures, and that will be ultimately driven all of operations. And that means that we have a defined plan of how every community, every school in the Clay County is addressed from a facility standpoint and a safety standpoint. And then when you develop that plan in a half-cent sales tax, it is very explicit about what you do and how you do it. I think that's one way that we can generate money. The other way, and I think we need both, is to increase the millage rate. I think we need to do both of them. And why I sit and I'm not one to say, hey, we need to raise all the taxes left and taxes right. But I can tell you, as a community member, I am willing to invest in education. I am willing to invest in my child, and even when my children leave Clay County District Schools, it'll always be a part of who I am as a community member, because I know it impacts my property value and it impacts the way we interact with each other in society. So I believe that as a leader, and I will be presenting a plan to the board that talks about a potential additional revenue services or opportunities in order to increase structures, in order to address the structures and so many needs within our school district. Because ultimately, honestly, while the state has worked hard to give us $400 million throughout the state, we still need assistance. We need assistance. We need to be increasing teachers' pay. We need to be focusing on insurance. We need to be focusing on every one of our structures, every one of creating single points of entry, and creating the safest environment that we can every single day for our kids, along with selecting the best curriculum every day. Anything?
Yes, sir, if I can. I just want to make sure that everybody understands. Our team has gone out and actually conducted needs assessment of every facility that we have. Not just, we looked at it from a facilities standpoint, mechanical systems and where we are. We're in a beautiful facility right here at Oakleaf. It's one of our newest facilities, but it's coming up on 9 years old. And at 15 years of age, that's the time where you start looking at replacement of major mechanical systems and things of that nature. There's just never been the funding available to do that. When we got finished with the needs assessment that we conducted district-wide, when we started adding up everything that we really needed to do to bring our facilities current, bring our facilities relevant, we're in excess of $280 million district-wide when you look at mechanical systems, HVAC, safety, security upgrades, all the things that we need to do to make sure that we can truly elevate Clay. I joke with the superintendent a bit, and he's always talking about elevating Clay. I think we need to excavate a lot of Clay. We have 982 portables, and regardless of somebody's philosophy on whether or not they are for brick and mortar or not for brick and mortar, we all agree on one thing. It's very difficult to secure 981 portables. We crunched one up. We're making progress. But it's very difficult to secure that space. So our community has a lot of need as far as when it comes to facilities that we need to do to make sure that we make our facilities relevant. Our kids deserve that.
They do deserve it. They do. So all that to say is that we have ways to go and work to do, and we have to make sometimes decisions. And I will say this, St. Johns County is the #1 school district in the state. Every time I see that superintendent, I tell him coming after him. Every single time. I walk around, I do the old Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers commercial with his belt. I walk around, I'm coming for your belt. And let me tell you what they did. They had a cent. They raised a 2.5 cent, sales tax to put completely into operations of facilities of the school district.
Impact fees are twice as much.
And impact fees are double ours, but that's correct. So at the end of the day, if it's good enough for the #1 school district in the state, I want to compete. And we owe it to our kids, we owe it to our community, and we owe it to our teachers as well.
Sort of a follow-up question on funding. There appears to be a great disconnect between Tallahassee and our legislation and local officials. Do you want to comment?
Yeah, I would say I give credit to our local officials here. They truly understand the crunch in reference to where we are financially. The issue is that they can't do it alone. There's so many that are there, and they have so many competing initiatives that they're trying to accomplish as relates to what's important to them in their community. I will tell you that we were able to receive more funding due to our local delegates that worked hard for us to bring more money this year to Clay County. But I can tell you, as I go to superintendent meetings and I work through FADS, which is the Florida Association for School Superintendents, we hammer Tallahassee. We hammer Tallahassee about funding for teachers, about resources. We thank them for the money they sent for safe and civil schools, but we told them there's no way that I'd be able to compete and pay for funding as relates to all of our resource officers. And we're not done yet, because there's a small pocket of money that they're still holding on to that relates to hardening schools, and we're trying to get more. But there's only a small percentage of money that can go to the entire nation for that. So I will tell you is that we are actively pushing Tallahassee. Our local legislators are on our side. They are partners in our work. But it's going to take each of you sending letters, sending emails, and I will go and I'll update on our website. I'll put all of our local legislators, all the appropriation leads, and I encourage you to email them as well. I send emails all the time. I pick up the phone and call them and ask them and tell them what we need in reference. When it was 47 cents base allocation, I hammered them with emails. I actually texted the governor and said, don't sign it. Why would you sign this? It's 47 cents. I need more money. We can't do it. So we've got to continue to stand together, but it can't be school district, superintendent, principals, teachers. It has to be business partners, faith-based partners, mental health agencies, parents, caregivers, in order for us to rally behind it. We can all stand together, united, and make noise. But it's very hard for us to stay in isolation in order to create the same momentum and noise as well.
Well, this is the last question that I have from the group, and it deals more with climate and culture. Have you given thoughts to requiring schools to have students wear uniforms?
Yeah, so I will openly tell you, in my previous life, I implemented uniform policy. In probably around 76 schools of 170 schools. And I did it on voluntary basis, I made every SAC committee at each school, every PTSA come together and vote. And they had to prove that they wanted that as a community, and then I had to make certain that I had the right leader that was going to implement it and make sure it was implemented every single day with every learner. What I found was, while it created pride within a school, kids looked good, they looked well, it had no impact on behavior, it didn't have any impact on academics, where you think it would. The only thing it did was it put kids in the same outfits every single day, where you may not talk about who's got the hottest shoes, who's got the best shirt, how much does that shirt cost. It took all that away, but it never impacted academics, and it never impacted behavior. I tried to do, me and Mike McCauley, who's our climate culture assistant superintendent, we ran analytics for days trying to prove the theory, not only locally in the school district we were in, but we branched out nationally to figure out what actually, could we pinpoint academics and behavior that it made a difference. And we found nowhere that it did. It made people feel good, it made parents feel good, kids feel good. But if it's not going to move the needle behavior-wise, if it's not going to move the needle academically, then why are we doing it? So, if it's not going to give us benefit to it, other than kids being in the same uniform and having pride, then I would say openly that I am not willing or ready to go. If I have community members, and I'm talking about a SAC and PTSA that is ready to go and they want to implement it, and I will entertain the conversation. But I would also give them all the analytics that I created and put it side by side so we can have an intellectual conversation and look at the pros and cons of that initiative within the school district. I think that, while that's a good strategy, what I really need is for parents and caregivers to stand with me in this process, to educate and be involved in your child's life, and to be connected about what they're doing, when they're doing, how they're doing it, and hold them accountable. Set short-term and long-term goals, and push our teachers and our administrators to help you in that process. Our teachers can't do it alone. Our administrators can't do it alone. My staff and law enforcement can't do it alone. But collectively, we can stand united, and we can move in the right direction and help and assist. Anything else?
I have one question from Facebook.
Facebook Live, you have a question?
Is the superintendent or the board planning to address how they plan to hold administrators, teachers, and staff accountable for failing to follow school safety SOPs? Is there going to be greater focus on training of school personnel, including substitutes and non-instructional staff?
Yeah, I honestly don't know what SOP is. Okay, and what are we talking about? So if you're watching live, from standard operating procedures, we will hold everyone accountable as relates to policy and procedures. The biggest thing is to make sure we're consistent in those procedures, and when we see, whether me, myself, or administrative staff, or teachers that may not be following the procedures, then it's a coaching opportunity for us to help them better understand. And it could be the fact that we may not have articulated that in a way that they understand, and we have not modeled. So we want to make certain that we will continue to review every procedure with our staff, with our administration, our district personnel, so that everyone within the school district understands policy, procedures, and the plan moving forward. If it comes to a sense where there's an issue that needs to be pushed to human resources, we will always address that. But every opportunity can get better, and every opportunity is a coaching moment for our staff. So that's an evolving measure that we will have, but it's also a learning measure that we'll stand with our teachers every single day to help them and our administrators.
So Addison, let me add to that real quick.
Yes,
We are also going to hold students and parents accountable through a truancy program in cooperation with the schools. We've now launched a truancy program where we're picking up truant students. At some point, we'll be contacting parents, we'll be holding them accountable for their students' actions. So that's something that's been a long time coming. I think it's gonna, and I believe it's already helped in a lot of areas like arrest and things of that nature. So there's a lot of accountability coming across the board at every angle, not only at the schools, but the parents and with law enforcement. I can tell you that with the sheriff's office, we have several groups that we meet with citizens on a monthly basis. We have buy-in from them. We have a partnership with our community. We have a partnership with our schools. So I think this is just the beginning for us to turn this thing around. And just for the record, this didn't just start. This has been going on since 1999. We've been a long time coming for funding, and now we're behind the 8 ball, so we got to catch up. We should have been addressing all these funding issues a long time ago, but it just is fresh in Florida. So now when we decide to deal with it, but you know, in 1999, I believe was the first one. When I was in school, there was not a single school shooting or bombing threat my entire high school career, and we had rifles and shotguns in our car windows when we went to the school to go deer hunting afterwards. But you know, on the same side of the coin, there were a lot of things that are different. We got patterns. You know, we were accountable to our parents. We said yes or no, ma'am. We were accountable to law enforcement, teachers. We were accountable to the neighbors. You know, so there's a lot of things that have changed. We didn't have Facebook. I didn't have a pager. You were lucky. So I think together we can make a change, and we can make the schools safe. But it's going to be, like the superintendent said, it's going to require a partnership with the entire community. And I said at a Rotary Club meeting the other day, just because you don't have students in school, that's an investment that's going to affect you when you're retired, because they're going to be school administrators and politicians and business owners, and superintendents and police officers. And we're going to be sitting at home calling on the telephone wanting something done. And those kids that are in high school now are going to be the ones answering those phones. So you got to keep that in mind.
That's right. Thank you. And great point. So, you know, this is supposed to be the generation that socially changes the world. But through their interactions and through their, their interactions and through their conversations, they have somewhat improved, not all of them, some of them, immaturity, and that we know that they are capable of greater things and greater actions and greater mindset. So I ask you to continue to have a growth mindset with us. I appreciate you allowing me to lead in the school district. I love my job. I love being here. And I know that, while you may say, Addison, tonight was ultimately for me to tell you what we're doing, what's in progress, and what future vision is for it, and some of the action that we can take. Know that, as Chief talked about, this has happened since 1999, the first unfortunate incident and tragic event, which means that so many years have gone by that we have deferred the work to these buildings in Clay County. And now, I'll be honest with you, I'm superintendent of schools. My job is I'm not going to dwell on the past of what has happened, what has not happened. My job is for us to move forward and create accountable measures in order to harden instructors. So we work collectively to do so, and we ensure a safe environment for every one of our kids. I thank you for being here. I know that we will continue to get better, and then know that you can reach out to me anytime that you need to. Thank you, and have a good evening.